Hi, I'm David Harris, CEO of American Jewish Committee, and I'm speaking to you from the airport in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. We wanted to do this video outside and give you a flavor of this beautiful city, but it's minus 14 degrees Celsius, so we decided to go indoors. We just wrapped up an AJC visit here to Ukraine, one of many over the last 30 plus years, at a very tense moment in the life of this country. It's headline news around the world. There are Russian troops on the border of Ukraine, and many are speculating about what the intentions of those Russian troops are. Will they seek to invade this country? If so, part of the country, the entire country? It's not known, but this is the environment in which we spent the last couple of days in meetings with government officials, diplomats, and leaders of the Jewish community. Let me back up for a moment. In 1991, this country, Ukraine, regained its independence after more than 70 years of Soviet domination and communist oppression. It was a very liberating moment, but the transition to a post-communist society is not simple, nor was it easy here in Ukraine. There were issues of political turmoil, there were issues of corruption, there were issues of Russian attempts to undermine and destabilize the country from day one. In 1994, a very important event happened that most people have forgotten. It's called the Budapest Memorandum. This country, Ukraine, gave up the nuclear arsenal on its soil, which was believed to be the third largest in the world, in exchange for solemn commitments by the United States, the Russian Federation, and Great Britain, that in exchange, this country's territorial sovereignty and integrity would be guaranteed. Clearly, that was not to be the case. Fast forward to 2005, Vladimir Putin, Russia's leader, announced to his nation, and I quote, that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical failure of the century. In other words, for him, there was a nostalgia for what was and what had been lost, and he was determined to try and regain what he could. Now fast forward 9 more years to 2014, the Maidan Revolution. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians going into the streets, in some cases spending months in tents in the streets in order to assert their right to chart their country's destiny, which they believed should be focused on Europe, not on Russia, but on Europe. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation entered and annexed Crimea and entered eastern Ukraine, an area called Donbass, and also seized that as well. So Russian occupiers to this day are in those places. Now fast forward to the current moment. As I said, there are 100,000 or more Russian troops surrounding the border of Ukraine now, and the question remains, will they act? Russian leaders have presented ultimatums to the West, outrageous ultimatums, which would deny Ukraine its right to determine its future. In fact, would try and redefine the whole space between Russia and its western borders. And so this is a moment of definition for not just Ukraine, but also its friends. Washington, the Biden administration has been deeply involved in trying to address this issue. The French and the Germans as the leaders of Europe, NATO officials in Brussels. This is a moment where we believe maximum coordination, consultation, and solidarity must be the name of the game. If we succeed, it will be an important moment for the West. But if we fail, then Vladimir Putin, the Kremlin, will be further encouraged to believe that they have sensed weakness. And if they sense weakness, then remember Putin's declaration of 2005, his nostalgia for the old Soviet Union. Meanwhile, of course, we know that he has already, in years past, entered into Georgia and stayed in parts of Georgia. He has essentially reestablished full control over Belarus. He has managed what's called a frozen conflict in Moldova. He's now made advances in Kazakhstan. So he, as a shrewd, cunning chess player, is assessing us and we must not be found wanting as a Western world. Ukraine should not just be seen as the only issue here. The larger issue for us is not just Ukrainian territorial integrity and sovereignty, as important as it certainly is. It's also European security, transatlantic security, American security. This is a huge issue, and I can assure you as well that others in Beijing, in Tehran, in Pyongyang are watching carefully to see how we as a Western world respond to the latest threats coming from Moscow. I would also add that Ukraine is important for other reasons. Ukraine is home to a large Jewish community with a very strong history. Ukraine today is a country where anti-Semitism, which was once a serious factor in Ukrainian life, is receding. Many Ukrainian Jews have told us in the last couple of days that they feel safer here than they would in many other parts of Europe. Ukraine's relationship with Israel is a very strong bilateral relationship today. Israel relies very heavily on IT specialists in Ukraine. It relies very heavily on imports of wheat from Ukraine, construction workers. Ukraine has supported Israel on many UN resolutions. The list is a long and growing one. And I should also note that since 2019, the president of Ukraine is a proudly identified Jew, President Zelensky. Other than Israel, I don't know of many countries in the world that are led by a Jewish president. Ukraine is. So in a way that also underscores the fact that whatever Ukrainian history might have been today, the country is entirely comfortable, especially at this defining moment in its history, being led by President Zelensky. So for all these reasons, we at AJC have been proud and determined to stand with Ukraine, to underscore the importance of the Ukrainian issue, not just for Ukraine, but for the larger world. We're proud to have been here these last couple of days as we were here in October, and no doubt we will be here again and again to express our friendship, our support, and our solidarity. Goodbye from Kyiv.